YouTube, I'm the Manjin, and today we're gonna learn how to make a RPG game. Now, this RPG game is gonna be very similar to Diablo in terms of mechanics, but it's not gonna be similar in terms of the graphics. So now let's open Unity and create a new project. Let's call it RPG game. You can call it however you wish to. Now, before we start, I want to say a couple of important things. First thing is that you always start making a game by making its mechanics and then graphics. You never want to start making its graphics and then mechanics, because if you find out the mechanics are not as good as you want to, you will have to rework your graphics, which is a lot of work and a lot of waste of time. So it is always preferred to work on your mechanics first. So that being said, first gonna create a terrain. Now a terrain is basically where our character is gonna move and stand on. And by default, Unity always creates a main camera. You can scroll in and scroll out for zooming in and out. You can press Alt and move your mouse to rotate around, and use your arrow keys to move front and back. I'm just gonna set our camera so it looks at the terrain and rotate it a little bit by clicking at this left top button over here. Gonna rotate it a little bit like that. Perfect. And now we're gonna add a point light so that we actually see our game objects. And put it over here. So now we have some lights. And increase the intensity. Okay, now we're gonna make a cube. This cube is basically gonna be our player. Now, in the future, we're gonna add in cool models and animations by importing assets from Unity to make it look nicer, and all these assets are gonna be free. Just making it just above the terrain. There we go. So we can name this cube our player, as it's gonna be our player. So box collider is basically allows this box to collide with other objects and not intersect with them. But instead of box collider, we're gonna use a character controller. It's the same thing as a box collider, but we can use character controller to control our cube and move it around. Okay, so you know, as in Diablo, we can click to move, so we click on the terrain and our player moves towards the terrain, and we're gonna do something similar. So to do that, we're gonna add functionality to our player, and we add functionality by making new scripts, and we're gonna make scripts in C#. So you can go to add component, new script, name it click to move, and we're gonna make it in C#, create an add. Make sure you add that to your player. You're gonna open it up in Mono Develop. Okay, the script is basically a functionality you can add, and scripts have methods. These methods are blocks of code that can be used again and again in your script. So void start is a function that is executed when the game object is created. So, and void update is a method or a function that is called every frame, which is basically usually 60 times a second or 30 depending on your computer. So first we're gonna add the functionality to click to move. For this, we're gonna take input from the user. So we're gonna make an if statement, which basically means If the condition in over here is met, we're going to execute our code over here. So first we're going to say if the inputs.getMouse button 0. So this basically means if our user presses the mouse button, and 0 basically means the left mouse button, we're going to execute what is in here. So what we want to do is we want to locate where the player clicked on the terrain. So first, when the player clicks on the terrain, we need to locate the position of the terrain, the position where the player clicked. So first, for that we need to have a variable called position, where we store the position at which the player clicked. And we need another variable called float speed, which holds the speed of the player. Float is basically a type of variable which is basically numbers with decimals, and vector3 is just a position in space. So after we locate where the player has clicked on the terrain, we need to move the player to the position. These statements don't have any effect to the code because they're comments, and you can generate a comment by putting a double slash. First, we're going to make our own custom method called void locate position. Basically, these are methods similar to these, but they're our own made methods. And void is something you have to put, or else Unity will give you error. This is basically a return type, but you don't need to worry about this yet. So basically, we're going to locate position. So when the user presses the left button, we're going to locate position, and it's going to jump over to this block of code and execute this. So the way we're going to locate the position is use a raycast hit. I'm going to explain this in detail in just a moment. So raycast hit is basically a structure that allows you to get information from ray. And ray is basically a line in 3D space, and we can get information of objects that are intersecting this line. In this case, we're going to make a ray so that it intersects the terrain, and we will know at what position it intersects at the terrain. Now the way we're doing this is we're saying the ray is going to start at camera, and it's going to point to our mouse position. So we're going to have a camera. It's going to point towards our mouse position in the game, and it's going to go to the terrain and intersect at the position in the terrain. And we're going to use that position to record it to our position, and then we're going to ask our player to move to that position. So the way we're going to program this is we're going to have an if statement, and we're going to say if. Again, I will explain this in detail. So if raycast, so it's saying physics raycast, so it's asking the physics class to make a ray, and we're going to pass it the ray that we just made over here, and it's going to out hit. So it basically, if it hits something, it's going to give all the information to our hit variable, and it asks for the distance. How long do you want the ray to be? So it's going to cast a ray of this. It's going to cast this ray and load all the information into hit. So it's going to load all the information at which position it hits in hit, and it's going to be 1,000 units long. And then we're going to record the position by the hit. So we're going to get the hit and take the position of it. executing all the three parameters in 3D space x, y, and z. And that is our first method. It records our position. We can test this by doing a debug.log. This basically prints to the console, and this is good for debugging. And let's try. As you can see, it gives a position at which the player clicks the terrain at. If you go closer to 0, 0, it's going to be closer to 0, 0, which is origin. So now we want our player to move to the position. So we're going to make a new method, void move to position. And we're going to call it position method. So first, this is going to work by first the player is going to click onto the terrain, and we want our player to look towards the position first. And then after it looks towards the position, we want our player to move towards the position. And that is how our algorithm is going to work. So the way it's going to work is we're going to make a variable, quaternion, if I pronounce it right, and we're going to name it new rotation. And how this and then I'm going to explain the statement in just a moment. So what this statement basically says is it takes the position of the position we clicked at, the player clicked at, and subtracts it from our player position. And as a second parameter, it takes the angle we are looking at and then calculates the angle we have to move. I'll explain this over here. So basically, it takes the position we clicked at, subtracts it from the position of our transform, and then it takes the angle of our transform, and then it rotates it towards the position and calculates that angle. Okay. So if you want to know more about quaternion, you can go to Google and go to the Unity script reference. Right there. Quaternions are used to represent rotations. There we go. And then we want, and I forgot to explain what transform is. Transform is basically this over here. It has our current position, our current rotation, and our current scale. Okay. So now we want our transform's rotation to rotate this new rotation we calculated, which is basically the position to which we clicked at, which is over here. So we're going to say transform that rotation is equal to quaternion.slurp. So basically this is saying we want the transform to rotate, and slurp basically means rotate the game object smoothly. So it's going to rotate our player smoothly from our current rotation to the new rotation, with this much speed. Okay, so let's test this. So as you can see, it's looking at our mouse, but you can see that there's a bug. That it also rotates on its x and y axis. So we want our game object to rotate only on the y axis, but not on the x and z axis. So we basically can do that by saying new rotation dot x is equal to 0f. So this basically disables the object to move on the x and z axis. And as you can see, it faces our position. To make it clearer, we can add a nose to our cube because it's all identical from the same sides. And we can change the scale by pressing this button. And we can child this to player. This basically means that nose now will follow player no matter what. It's gonna rotate with player and follow player. As you can see, it's facing towards our mouse position. Now, we want our player not just to look at the position, but to move towards the position. Now, we're going to do this by using the controller over here. So, and before we do that, we need to make our speed public, so that, and our position private. Now the difference between public and private is that public variables can be accessed by other scripts in the game, but private variables can be accessed by only the scripts in the game. And public variables are shown in the inspector, and you can change them. You can edit their values within the inspector, which makes it really easy. And so to move the player, we need our speed variable and our character controller. We're going to use our character controller to move our player. So we need a public character controller, and you can name it anything you want to. Make it public, so we can see that in our inspector, and we can simply drag and drop our character controller. Now with the help of our character controller, we can say controller dot simple move transform dot forward. So basically it says controller dot move in the forward direction. So it basically rotates to our desired position. It'll rotate, and then it's going to move in its forward direction. And also we can save the game scene. I'm going to name it play mode by Command S. Or if you're on a Windows, Control S, I believe. And let's test this. As we can see, our character is moving, but it's extremely slow. This is because we can time this by our speed to make it into a normal speed. And as you can see, it's moving. Now it has a bug because it keeps on moving even though it reaches our position. This is because even though it reaches our position, it still continuously moves. So to fix this, we need to tell our game object to only move until it reaches our destination. So this basically means if the distance between our destination and our player is 0, it should stop moving. So basically, you're going to have if statement, say if vector3.distance, it's a method which calculates distance between our position and the destination is less than 1, is more than 1, we're going to move. But if it is less than 1, it's not going to do anything. So I'm going to repeat this. If the distance between transform our position and the destination is more than 1, we have to move towards the destination. And we have to look towards it as well. Okay? As you can see, it moves towards our destination and stops there. But we still have another bug. When the game starts, our cube automatically tries to go to the origin. This is because by default our position is 0, 0, 0. But by default we want our position to be our position, the player's position. And this will fix the problem. And as you can see, we have a functionality that allows our player to move on the terrain when we click on it. Now, in the future, I'll be giving out more tutorials of the series, so it's going to be a series, and I'm going to be uploading videos every alternative days. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you like my content for more content, and have a nice day.